I'm back from going on the first 2 Royal Caribbean cruises from North America, and I've got 8 things you should know if you're going on a Royal Caribbean cruise this summer, up next. Hey everyone, it's Matt from RoyalCaribbeanBlog.com, and after 15 months, I was able to get back on a Royal Caribbean cruise. It was amazing, it was fantastic, and being able to get back on Royal Caribbean's Adventure of the Seas and have a cruise again was an amazing feeling. So if nothing else, I want everybody to remember that, yes, going on a cruise is still super awesome. But today, I wanted to share my thoughts and experiences about what it's like to go on a cruise, especially this summer if you're looking at a cruise perhaps in July, August, or beyond, because there are changes. But the good news is a lot of the core cruise experience is very much the same. Now, I sailed on Royal Caribbean's Adventure of the Seas from Nassau, Bahamas. So this cruise did not go out of the United States. I'll have more on those kind of cruises next week. But in the meantime, we're talking about this particular sailing in which all adults had to be fully vaccinated, which essentially means anybody over the age of 16 had to be fully vaccinated. So there were a lot of changes on board, but honestly, most of the experience, the core cruise experience, was still there. So if you're worried about that, does it still feel like a cruise? Absolutely yes. But there are a couple things I wanted to share about what it's like to go on a cruise, so that way you have the right expectations going forward. Number one, and this is the best reason to go on a cruise this summer, especially if you're on the fence about it, and that is limited capacity means you basically have the cruise ship to yourself. On these first 2 Adventure of the Seas sailings, there were just over 1,000 passengers on board on a cruise ship designed to handle easily over 3,000 passengers. Now, doing some of this easy math, that means you only have a third capacity of the ship being used, and that means there's a lack of crowds, lines, and wait times, and it's really noticeable. Anyone that's cruised often will relish the opportunity to have less of a wait for things like elevators, pool chairs, or water slides. If you're going on a cruise soon, you'll likely be able to take advantage of these shorter lines, and it's a really nice side effect of Royal Caribbean's attempt to promote social distancing by reducing the amount of guests on board. I mean, you really notice this at Perfect Day at Coco Cay, which of course is Royal Caribbean's private island in the Bahamas, where usually you'll have anywhere between 7,000 and 9,000 guests, but on the island, you can do whatever you want, including the water slides, with really no wait. Now, something you should be really aware of about any cruise, and this even occurred to me on just 2 sailings, and that is testing requirements can and will likely change a lot. One constant early on has been change, and if you're going on a cruise this summer, you should expect changes, and changes even close to your sail date. Health protocols are paramount to the cruise industry, and we've already seen a lot of requirements for guests boarding a ship change a couple of times. While Royal Caribbean communicates these changes to guests and travel agents booked on board, expect to get new changes sent at any time, even just a few days before you set sail. There is no minimum amount of time in which they won't change your protocol, so you have to have a fair amount of flexibility when it comes to that. Next up is there's going to be demand for specialty dining more than normal. On these Adventure of the Seas sailings with limited capacity, the Windjammer was not open for dinner. As a result, a lot of people were gravitating towards specialty restaurants as a result. Now, it's hard to know if this is a real trend or just a blip in the radar on Adventure of the Seas, but for whatever reason, there was more demand for specialty restaurants. So what does that mean? Well, if you're doing a dining package, you absolutely need to make reservations on day 1 to get a time for you. I was surprised that as the cruise went on, even in day 2, a lot of places were already booked up for most of the time. So whatever the reason, make reservations early for specialty dining. Now, this is a biggie, and I saw a lot of people breaking this rule, and I shook my head at it, but you should still fly in a day ahead of time before your cruise. A lot of people have discovered Royal Caribbean's Air to Sea program, which is the cruise line's option to book your airfare through Royal Caribbean. And then, kind of similar to a shore excursion, Royal Caribbean says, hey, if there's a delay, if there's a cancellation, we'll take care of you. We'll get you on board the cruise. A lot of people say, wow, that's amazing. Now I'm going to book my flight the same day of the cruise. Well, that's still the wrong thing to do, regardless of who you book it through. Unfortunately, people were not only just booking flights the same day of their cruise, but booking flights that would depart very close to the sail away time. In my opinion, that's just playing with fire. So what you really want to do, regardless of how you book your flights, come in at least a day ahead of time, especially if you're flying to the Bahamas. I know it costs a little bit more money to book a hotel, but it's worth it. Now, something that's going to be very important to a lot of people is there is still a buffet on a cruise. Good news. One of the concerns early on was, would there be a buffet? But breakfast and lunch, the Windjammer buffet is open for you, and you can go there. Now, there is a change to it, and actually two major changes we want to talk about. Number one, you have the option of making a reservation for the Windjammer. Royal Caribbean limits capacity to ensure it does not get overcrowded, and similar to especially a restaurant, you can make a reservation to assure yourself of a spot at the buffet. You can make reservations via the Royal Caribbean app or in person at the entrance. Now, on both of my sailings, the reservations were not necessary. There just weren't enough people, but theoretically, it could occur. And the other major change to the buffet is now full service. So instead of you serving yourself, crew members will place the food on your plate. This is easy enough, and actually it moves a lot faster in my opinion, but something else you should be aware of. Something else that's really big, and you might notice even more so than if you cruise back in early 2020, and that is there's a huge emphasis on using Royal Caribbean's app. Royal Caribbean spent a lot of time and money getting the Royal Caribbean app to be a really important integral part of the cruise. So it's gone from something that used to be nice to have to essential to have on board. So many of the functions go through the app now, including check-in, the cruise compass, menus, and reservations. Royal Caribbean has always felt the app was a helpful asset for guests to reduce friction and speed things up, but now it's more useful as a great touch-free point. I know there's some folks who don't want to use their phones on vacation. I get that, but you're going to be at a major disadvantage if you don't. You don't have to use the app. You can totally leave that at home and not use your phone at all if that's what you want to do. Just be aware things will take longer and it'll be slower for you in the overall scheme of things. You can still do it, but you're at a major disadvantage. So my advice, download, install the app. There's a big difference between using the app on the cruise and answering your work email. So don't do that, but use the app and you'll be good to go. It's really not like having it attached to your hip all the time. It's just mostly to make the process, especially embarkation, my goodness, so much easier. Now, something else I was unprepared for, but very happy to see on board Adventure of the Seas are the crew members. Not only that, but they're extremely happy to see us as well. I was blown away by how excited the crew members are to have guests back on board. Just like the cruise ships, cruise members have been without work since really March 2020. And so many crew members loved working on cruise ships as a way to generate a good income and support their families. While crew members are wearing face masks on board, their enthusiasm is apparent in conversations and greetings you see around the ship. And probably the most important thing that you should know about going on a cruise, something I talked about very at the beginning of this video, and that is the experience is more similar than different. A lot of people have been asking, Matt, what's it like to go on a cruise now? How different is it? The answer is it's actually more similar than not. If you were expecting cruising in 2021 to be some sort of a lockdown, limited cruise experience, it's really anything but that. Surprisingly, the differences and changes on board are minimal, and going on a ship today has a lot more in common with going on a cruise ship a few years ago. Now, again, my experience was on Adventure of the Seas, and I was fully vaccinated. We'll talk about in future videos here what it's like if you're unvaccinated and some of the restrictions on there, because sailing out of the US will be different than sailing out of the Bahamas. But on my cruise, it was actually more similar than not. While there was social distancing, a few digital additions, and other changes, the truth is the day-to-day experience on board, especially once you get past the embarkation process, was very similar to what it used to be. Now, it remains to be seen what the cruise experiences may be like exactly on every ship as the restart begins. But if everything continues on its current trajectory, it appears we can expect almost the same cruise vacation fun we did before the industry shut down last year. Now, that's my experience here on Adventure of the Seas, and if you're watching this video the day or the week this comes out, that's awesome. Thank you so much for your support. I'll have another video coming out next week all about what it's like on Freedom of the Seas out of the United States. Is it going to be similar, different? I'll have a breakdown for you on that in an upcoming video. If you like this video, found it helpful, make sure you hit the thumbs up button, you subscribe to our channel, and turn on your notifications so that way YouTube lets you know when I have a brand new video to share. This has been Matt from RoyalCaribbeanBlog.com, and we'll talk again real soon.